Okay. It is going to be on YouTube, if nothing else, so we'll see. Can I say good evening and welcome to everyone? Just in case you don't know me, and I think from what I can see on the call, everyone does know me. My name is Clive Saunders, and I'm the chair of the Watford African Caribbean Association and also of our Black History Month steering group. This is the penultimate event that we're having for Black History Month this year. And to my mind, it is one of the most important events that we're going to have, because we're wanting to focus tonight on health and social care. It is an area of life for which us and as a community have long contributed and still contribute significantly. Not that we necessarily get the reward that should be reflected from that contribution. But we are going to be talking to some colleagues from that field. And there are many of you also on the call who have been on that journey yourself and will, I'm sure, be able to contribute as we go along to tonight. Our major contributors tonight, we have with us at the moment, we have our very own Councillor Favour, who is a social worker and many other things, as you will no doubt learn later on. She's also been involved in our steering group as well, and she's a member of the association too. So she's going to be talking to us too later on tonight. We've got someone who's been with us earlier on this month. My friend and former colleague, Etel Changa, who is formerly the Assistant Director of nursing within the Mental Health Trust called Hertfordshire Partnership University NHS Foundation Trust. So welcome again, Ethel. We are waiting. Technical difficulties of one sort or another has got in the way of a couple of other people joining us, and that is Dr. Brett Kintu, who is just finishing some work, but he's going to join us in a little while. And one of my current colleague in my work setting, Hilda Jaya, who is a senior member of staff in the mental health field, is going to, she's trying to get on, but she's having some difficulties getting on. I am co-hosting this evening with Marilyn, who those of you who've been on calls before more than likely would have seen Marilyn. We're the 2 degrees. But we also have a number of other people I know on here who are part of our steering group. But as I say, this is the penultimate event that we're having over the month. And so far we've had, we started with our launch event on the 1st of October. We then had a couple of literature events. We had a session on Black Lives Matter. We had a session on the reality of Black Lives Matter, and we had a session on education too, as well as we've had a session last night with young people, and we heard some young voices. We think this is the beginning of a journey rather than the end of a journey, because I'm sure we all agree on this call that Black history is not a 1 month affair. So we are looking at this becoming a series of Black history initiatives that we are going to be having, looking at Black history. And welcome Dr. Brett, who is with us now. You're most welcome. And I have to say, I've got one of my children joining us tonight. Aronde is with us. Welcome, Aronde. Dr. Miss gone.
He's gone.
Oh no, it just moved around the screen. And he's a volunteer in the health sector, so he's most welcome too. So, Marilyn, do you want to say anything more before we kick off with asking one of our speakers to start off?
No, I think we should just get started.
Okay. Favor, what about you kicking off then? And then we'll ask Ethel and then Dr. Brett, give him time to settle in.
Okay.
Over to you.
So, welcome everyone to this novel event. I'm really pleased that we're having conversations around health and social care for Black History Month. Because if you look at our journey as a people in United Kingdom, we have made very significant contributions to health and social care, much more than other fields and other parts of the economy. I remember last year, October, when I was moving a motion to raise the profile of Black History events in the council. One of my arguments was our contributions to Black history, to the UK society and community. And I drew from our contributions, particularly to the NHS and the journey that we have made through the years to build the NHS to what it is today. As much as we have contributed to other aspects of the economy, but there's one place that is glaringly obvious that we have made very significant contribution, and that is the health and social care sector. And when I say health and social care sector, I'm not just talking about the medical fields, both in the adult social care and other aspects of social care, including children, young offenders, and of course, in the medical profession, doctors, nurses, and social work, and other health and social care professions. So when we look at it, the population of staff in this area, I don't know where this country will be without our contributions. When you look at the total population of staff that work in, especially in adult social care, in the care sector, and this is a sector that is usually neglected in terms of how people place recognition. When you look at that sector, you discover that at least 1 out of, at least 5 out of every health and social care worker you might come across will be from an African Caribbean background. But still, that sector is usually the sector that is usually neglected in terms of the workforce. I know that recently when they did the review of the visa categories, there were arguments that health and social care workers were not regarded as skilled workers. And I remember I wrote a letter to our MP, our Dean, and the title of that my letter is "Why Clap for Me When You Called Me Unskilled?" Because I found it hypocritical that then we used to clap for NHS and health and social care workers on Thursdays. Yet when that review came out, health and social care workers were categorized as unskilled workforce. And this brings the question about why would that important workforce be categorized as such. But I'll come back to that at another discussion. Talking about the impact of COVID in the community. I've always said that COVID did not create inequality. COVID only exposed the inequalities that were already in the system. And the reason that COVID exposed it is because the impact it has had on Black and ethnic minority group shows that we are more in the forefront of where we come in contact more and we are more exposed to COVID than the other professions, than other communities. And that is why it has had more impact on our communities. Because when you look at who are the nurses, who are the healthcare assistants, who are the bus drivers, who are the shopkeepers, who are the people that work more in retail, who are the cleaners. When you look at the population that occupy in these professions, these are populations that are more from our community. And that is why I've always said that COVID exposed inequality. It didn't create inequality. I'm a social worker by profession before I went into mental health. Again, when you look at the structural inequalities that you see in mental health social work, you understand why Black Lives Matter, even in this particular area. You are 5 times more likely to be diagnosed with schizophrenia if you're a young Black man, rather than when you are another color. And that is very significant. If you look at section 3747 of the Mental Health Act, the number of people that are in this section that enter the mental health system through the criminal justice system is the number is usually more in the Black community than any other community. These are issues of inequality. I sit on NHS England Task Force on Inequalities. And when we look at the data clearly, even the community treatment order, the CTOs, the number of people, Black, African, Caribbean young men that are under CTOs, if we understand what CTO means, you understand why, if when you drill down the data, you'll be shocked to see that a significant number of people from our community are under CTOs. And behind why this is so is because of this concept of dangerousness that people look at our young men. And in order to risk manage that concept of dangerousness, people are placed on CTOs, regardless of whether it is what would best meet their care needs at that time or not. But we are just managing the risk or perceived risk that we see. As a social worker, it has always bothered me the number of Black children that go through child protection. And why does it bother me? It bothers me because when we look at the looked after children, the statistics is very glaring. Black people make up probably about 3% of England's population. But when you look at the number of children that are in care, looked after children from our community, you'll be looking at 8% of the population. Meanwhile, we make only about 3% of the population. And when you look at the number of children that stay longer in children's homes or in being looked after before they are put up for adoption or for permanency, you will see that Black children are 2 or 3 times more likely to remain as looked after children in children's home before they are put up for adoption or for permanency. And these are areas of concern for our community. And so there are so many things for us to unpick this night, but I just thought I should give us this brief tester until we get into the nitty-gritty of the conversation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Favor.
And Clive, just one thing, Dr. Brett has said he's at work, so he may be in and out, but as he's here now, did you want to go to him next, just in case he has to disappear off again?
Yes, let's go to Dr. Brett, because what we'll do is when people have made their contributions, we will then open it up and people can ask some questions, and Favor will be able to come back later on. So thanks for now, Favor. Dr. Brett, welcome. Over to you then.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be amongst my esteemed colleagues and friends during this month that's been challenging in very many ways. I think Favor set the scene brilliantly, I must say, touching upon not just health, but also social care. And you've touched upon an aspect that is very close to my heart, which is when it comes to to childcare and what happens, especially when it comes to children becoming looked after and the perception of society, really. I think from a healthcare perspective, I can say that much as you said before, that indeed we've been frontline, indeed eventually we've been noticed. I go as far back as earlier on during the COVID pandemic, where there were pictures of the NHS, and our absence was glaringly obvious in the pictures when they were depicting the NHS, which was patently white, yet the people that were actually the main victims in the beginning of the COVID pandemic happened to be people that were mainly of the same skin tone as you and I, which wasn't being recognized. But eventually we did. And how disproportionately from a BAME perspective that we've been affected within the pandemic. Being a pediatrician, I can touch upon the aspect that affects children, where children, of course, are from 0 to 16, and in particular how our teenagers have been affected from a mental health perspective. We have disproportionately seen a number of children, still call them children even though they're teenagers, of BAME persuasion that have actively tried to seek help, but in the process of seeking help, instead of being supported by health professionals, they wound up going and not only being attended to by the police, unfortunately in some circumstances and situations, but also indirectly getting lost to not only us as a community, but also in social care as well, which Faye was touched upon. I think for me in particular, at this time, I'd like to recognize everybody, especially us from our community and our contributions. We have many fallen soldiers, colleagues, especially I'd say, forget people like myself as doctors, but mainly nurses, healthcare workers, in particular, people that do care work that have contributed enormously to us as a community and society as a whole. I think this pandemic has given us an opportunity to kind of reflect upon who we are as individuals. Sorry, I might have to go in a second. It reflects upon us not only as individuals, but also I think it's time that we pat ourselves on the back and shoulders as a community for our contribution, because indeed people have contributed hugely within this pandemic.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Brett. I mean, if you do have to leave and come back, I think we are going to be continuing our conversation for a little while. Ethel, welcome again. I think it's going to be over to you now.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Clive, and thank you. My name is Ethel Changa. I work within the health sector. I'm a nurse by background and work at deputy director level as well as regional lead level. I'm glad to be here and to be sharing this platform and talking on your platform. Clive has asked me to specifically talk about my a reflection on my own experiences as a healthcare worker, and I'm going to do exactly that, but I'm going to do it from the time that I first came into this country as a Black woman, my experiences. And I know many of you on the platform would have heard many people's narratives and stories, but I'm going to give mine, but in a very short space of time, because you know, there isn't a lot of time and there's more people to talk. So I'm going to try and be quite succinct with that, but I'm also going to finish off what I'm going to say with because obviously Favor has touched on COVID, and so has Dr. Brett has also touched on COVID. I just want to finish off just talking about COVID and its impact on healthcare workers, and more so impact on myself, and also what take home, what the ask is, and what we can take away as a group and really start to amplify and work on. So that's how I'm going to just take this forward. So Clive has asked me to talk about the challenges that I've really encountered, like I said, as a Black woman, and also what are the things that have helped me along the way. So I'm going to talk about that. So on reflection, when he asked me to do this, as I was reflecting, I started to think about my journey coming here. I'm an African girl. I'm from Zimbabwe, and I came into the country in the 90s to come and study as a student. I came straight into the north of England, and during the time that I came, there weren't many people who looked like me. As a Black student coming into healthcare, I think there was only about two of us who were in the university who were Black at that time. And also in the community where I actually was learning, where I was positioned in university, there was no people who looked like me. There was very few. Let me say, there was very few, maybe about 5 in the whole city. We didn't know each other, but I remember times when I'd be on the bus and I'd see somebody who looked like me, and I would quickly jump off at the next stop to run to that person to ask who they were, you know, where they came from, what they were doing in the city, could I know them? And, you know, and it was, we shared similar thoughts, and it's as in like, you know, I've not seen anyone who looks, you know, just that excitement of seeing someone who looked like myself. So it was quite a challenge and quite an experience. And I think for me, it was more so an experience because I didn't grow up, I wasn't born in the United Kingdom. So I didn't really understand the whole British culture and everything else. So fresh from Zimbabwe straight to university. So that was my first encounter. It was also the first time that I realized that I'm actually a Black woman, because when I walked in the high street, people would come to me and want to touch my skin. And I remember one particular young child who was about 9 years old was like, "Oh my God, Mom, look at her. She's been in the sun for so long. Look at her skin. Oh my God, oh my God." And it was like, what is going on here? So it was the first time that I actually realized that I'm Black, and that I'm Black, and that I'm different, and I'm in a place where I'm going to be seen very different. Obviously, I grew up knowing that I'm a woman of color, but it was amplified. That's what I mean. It was really amplified, and and my hair, and touching my hair, and oh my goodness, isn't she beautiful? Isn't she love? Oh my God, look at her. You know, those kind of little microaggressions started at that time. It was really difficult, but it was shocking at the same time. So went straight into university, and at university again, the challenge, and I'm talking about the university lifestyle more because there's something that we need to do for our students who are similar to myself, coming straight from Africa, coming into the NHS, coming into the healthcare sector. There's something that we need to do for them, and that's why I want to amplify my own journey. Learning the culture and understanding the culture and the language was something I didn't have. So we had people on the wards as I was studying as a student who would say things. I remember, and I've shared this with Clive and in other forums, where one service user said, "Oh, Ethel, I really want to spend a penny." And spending a penny means go to the toilet. And I thought they actually literally wanted to spend a penny. And I was saying things like, "Oh, you know, when you get better and you're out of hospital, make sure your social worker takes you to town to spend a penny." And it was those kind of things. I just didn't have that kind of knowledge and awareness of the British way of doing things. So it took me a while to really settle in and start to learn and know. Anyway, fast forward in my healthcare journey, I qualified as a nurse, and then moved obviously to London because I wanted to be in a place where in an environment where people look like me. I wanted to be around people who look like me. I was tired of being the one who always stuck out like a sore thumb in meetings or in the high street and things like that. So I started my career journey in London, the best time of my life completely. It was like somebody had just opened a cage and set me free in central London. And I was thinking, my God, I've made it, Mom, I've made it. I've kind of landed in London, and I'm a nurse and I love what I do, and straight into work. Absolutely love healthcare, absolutely love being a nurse. And my time and experience in London was absolutely amazing. Now, because of my passion in my work, I really excelled up the ladder, and more so because it was very diverse in London. So there was career progression was amplified, and I was supported, and I went up the ladder pretty quickly. The obstacles I started to encounter within healthcare was when I moved back up north to start a family, got married and start a family, moved back up north, and again there were not many people who looked like me. So going up the ladder in that area meant that I was the only one in senior leadership meetings, in managers meetings. I was the only one who looked like myself in those meetings. that's where I started to really experience quite a lot of discrimination as a woman. The first thing was really around my accent. I speak with an accent. I'm not fit to go and do specific presentations. I'm not the right fit for certain things. So other people who are less qualified than myself, but who are white and spoke with the English accent, were the ones who are sent off maybe for major meetings that I would otherwise have to be the one needing to go to. So that's the time that I really started to face direct discrimination at work, really around my accent. And then obviously my name is Ethel. So people who are speaking to me over email don't really realize that I'm a Black woman until they meet me. So it was things like turning up to a meeting and people thinking I'm there by mistake, like, who are you? Why are you here? Just because I'm a Black woman. And then when I turn around and say, well, it's Ethel, we've been communicating on email all this while. Oh my goodness, it's you. Oh my God. Oh, okay. Sorry. Yes, you are in the right meeting. So all those kind of things. And those things are really, they chip away at you and they really affect your physical health as well as just your mental well-being, because you kind of think, well, we're all here to do the same thing, which is to deliver healthcare. How I speak, my accent, and where I come from shouldn't really be the reason why I should be discriminated from having a seat at the table. So, so those were the subtle things that started to happen. Fast forward, it's just got worse. It just got worse. I mean, there's so many other examples that I could give of direct discrimination, and there was a point where I just reached a glass ceiling where I couldn't really progress anymore, and went for job interviews. And this is a story of many of us. Went for so many job interviews, obviously shortlisted, offered the interview, and you just missed it by a mark. You've missed it by half a mark, and things like that. And then you get to a point where you just don't bother anymore. You just go to work, you don't bother applying for the jobs, and you just kind of stay there. But you know that if you're someone who's passionate about healthcare, passionate about innovation, passionate about excellence, you really feel like you're being shut down. You're constantly being pressed down, but all you want to do is contribute. All you want to do is have a voice. All you want to do is being heard. And I think as a Black woman, I struggled at that point because I felt like there was no go. There was nowhere else to go. I just reached that glass ceiling when no one was willing to give me an opportunity, and no one was really willing to kind of give me that chance. The thing that actually helped me during this course was having a mentor. So what I decided to do was to actually go out and get myself a mentor. And the mentor that I got was a mentor who looked like me. I said to myself, I am going to look for a mentor and a person who's a Black woman, who looks like me, who's already in a senior leadership position. And where I worked, in the organization I worked, there was only one Black woman and one Black man. In fact, one Black man who were from a Black and ethnic minority who sat in leadership. So when I'm saying leadership, I'm talking about really senior leadership. And I approached this woman and I said, please, can you mentor me? I just need a mentor. I need someone to hear my struggle and the issues that I'm facing. She then agreed to mentor me. And that was the thing that actually helped me get to where I am. She started teaching me and talking to me about, helped me understand my own blind spots and helped me maneuver my way into the positions that I was going for. She coached me, she mentored me. But what she also did, which was really quite striking, is she opened up my sphere of influence. So she said, Ethel, you're really narrow thinking at the moment. You're looking at where you're at, but actually, have you looked at the wider system? Have you looked at what's happening outside the organization? How do you tap into the things that are happening external to the organization? So what we call the ICS, or the integrated care systems, or the STPs that they were called at that time. So she said, look further, look beyond, and tap into other networks. And so that's what I started to do. And that was the thing that actually enabled me to then learn from others who were in the system, who looked like myself, but to also give me the confidence to actually want to amplify my voice. So that mentor, coupled with the line manager that I had, who was really, really into personal development and appraisals and career development. Honestly, she was like a God-sent manager. And again, I'm amplifying this and emphasizing on it because our middle managers are absolutely key in supporting people who look like me within the healthcare sector. Why? Because we all come to work for one major reason, which is to look after vulnerable people who are in our care. And unless we have diversity of thinking and diversity of leadership, we're never going to reach that standard of excellence. So, so leadership is really important. So my manager at that time was really so invested in career development. And so in my appraisals, the questions she would ask would be really, Ethel, let's map out your next 6 months. What does that look like? And should create opportunities for me to develop. And that was really God sent, because her, coupled with my mentor, actually helped me position me for opportunities that then arose going forward. So those are the two key things that helped, that supported me. I mean, I could talk even more. I've really cut this short in terms of what I want to contribute, but I've got some take home messages before I talk about the COVID bit. The take home is, there's something that we need to do going forward to support Black women and Black people of color who are coming into healthcare. We need to support them from the onset. So from our student social workers, from our student nurses and healthcare workers, we need to really, us who are already in the system, who are already in leadership positions, we need to hold their hands and support them as they start off this journey. We need to be mentoring someone. We can't be in healthcare and be in leadership positions if we're not really reaching out and actually mentoring somebody. And that's the ask that I have on us today. And then the other thing is obviously coaching, so mentoring and coaching, and also making our the only way we can change the narrative and change the story, which is one of my absolute big agendas, is to change the story of BAME women and BAME people generally who are coming into healthcare by actually doing what we're doing, being involved in meetings like we're doing now, but to also amplify my voice within the organization that I work for and really advocate for those people, really advocate for our staff networks, for our BAME staff networks within our organization, and giving, as a senior leader, making sure that those staff networks have got a voice and the voice is heard, but at the same time holding the system to account. Too many a times, especially before I got into a senior leadership position, it was frightening to actually open my mouth and talk and challenge the system. But now that I'm actually in a senior leadership position, I am absolutely encouraging everyone at any level within our healthcare organization to really amplify our voices, really speak out, really hold the system to account, because unless we do that, then the culture is not going to change. We're still going to be having this conversation 20 years later, where we're still being discriminated, we're still being looked down upon, we're still being shut down and not given our voice. So my ask is, let's make our roles in healthcare and social care attractive roles. We need more and more people of color getting into these positions, but those of us who are already there, we need to make it attractive to come into social care, to come into healthcare. But then when people do come in, like I said, we need to hold their hand and actually help them along that journey as they are developing through their career. The other thing is obviously for progression, for us to progress within our career and to support people who are like ourselves, we need more and more of us in leadership position. And this is a story we've talked about over and over again, so I'm not saying anything new, but we need more leaders who are at the top, who are from ethnic minority groups. Why? Because that's the only way that we can build a resilient workforce, the only way that we can cross-check each other on our blind spots, the only way we can actually have innovation within our services, and the only way that we can actually bring about that diversity of thought. And until we recognize that diversity of thought is a key thing within our organization and actually amplify that and hold our organizations to account, then until we recognize it, we really are not going to get that far. So those are the key asks and the key things that I would like us to take away from here, which is, those of us who are in leadership positions, let's push down the ladder. so that those who are like us actually can have an opportunity to climb up the ladder. What is on that ladder? Coaching, mentoring, development opportunities. When opportunities arise, making them known to people who are like ourselves and actually supporting them. I've just come off a webinar just from here. We're supporting colleagues who are a group of people from BAME background on how to write an interview application. What are the things they're going for senior leadership roles, how to actually write your application. And then those who go to shortlisting, coaching. We're going to have a coaching session. What do you do in an interview? How do you become succinct? How do you make your how do you answer questions? How do you talk about strategy? How do you talk about CQI? All those things. So again, I'm doing that because I'm trying to ensure that we as leaders are represented at the top. We've got BAME people who are in leadership positions. Now going on to COVID, I know time is not on our side, Clive, but I'll take a very short time to say this. Moving on to COVID, I'm a survivor of COVID myself. I had COVID-19 really, really terribly, really was poorly. And obviously, as already has been mentioned by Favor and Dr. Brett, COVID has really amplified our need to focus more on this particular agenda and really spotlight what we are doing, and really brought to light all those inequalities that have always existed, but it's just really amplified it. And that's why now we need to take action more than ever. Now, as a survivor of COVID, one of the things that I've come to notice, which is going to help us, or which can help us as a BAME community, is to really look at the things that we have used as our scaffolding to help us maintain and amplify our wellness and well-being at work. So, for example, I know that a good majority and percentage of us are into our spirituality. We follow some kind of religion or spiritual path, and I certainly, like, for example, I'm a Christian, and I know a lot of my colleagues who are from ethnic minorities follow some form of spiritual path or religion. And one of the things that's come out is COVID has made us realize that when we were hit by COVID at the very beginning, one of the things it made me realize is, for the first time ever, there was no one who could come to the table and say, right, I've got a solution, we need to do X, Y, and Z. No one had that, because no one knew. It was an invisible monster that no one knew absolutely nothing about. We were all learning as we were going about our business. It just landed on us without us unaware. And it landed on us, and we had to learn as we went along. But one of the things that COVID did was it turned people to their spirituality. It turned us to our maker. It turned a lot of people to their maker, because we reached a place where we were completely in a corner. We reached a place where the GP couldn't tell us anything, healthcare systems couldn't tell us anything. No one could tell us anything about COVID, because it was an unknown, invisible monster. So a lot of people, including myself, had to turn to our spirituality. We had to turn to God and say, look, it's now, this is the only hope. And that is what gave people hope. So with COVID, what we need to do within our healthcare services and sectors and social care sectors is we need to think about us as a BAME workforce. What are the things that we turned to during COVID? And if one of those things is our spirituality, how are we then bringing that into our work? How are we then bringing that into the well-being offer in our healthcare sectors, in our social care sectors? How are we amplifying that? How are we saying this has to be part of our well-being strategy? We need to absolutely do that, because we want to go into work as a whole person, as a whole unit. Now, because I'm a survivor of COVID, my spirituality has absolutely, I know that I survived because God saved me. I know that without a doubt, because there was no medication I took, because there is no medication. All I could take was paracetamol. But I absolutely know that it was through prayer and people who were around me praying for me that I'm actually here, able to talk. Yes, I'm recovering now from all the viral fatigue and everything, but I do know that my faith played a key part in this. So how are we in the healthcare sector bringing this to light? How are we pulling what we know is would help us as Black and ethnic minorities actually promote our well-being. So we need to amplify that, and that is one of my biggest agendas, to amplify it within healthcare, having those prayer rooms at work, and those who need to tap into them being able to tap into them. There's another thing that COVID highlighted, and this came from people when we're doing engagement meetings and focus meetings, which is understanding our own health. We need to understand, COVID has made me understand my own health. COVID has made me go and actually check myself in terms of, am I actually sleeping okay? Do I actually sleep enough? Do I actually take time to rest? Do I actually understand my own health? Do I understand? When was the last time I went to the GP to just get a full health check? Do I understand my own health? So COVID has really amplified the fact that I need to understand my own health as a woman, and not just as a woman, but as a woman of color. What are the issues within my community that are affecting women of color? What are the things that I need to focus on to make sure that I am keeping myself physically well and physically fit and well? So more than ever, I mean, I used to just go to work, eat whatever I need to eat, but now I'm more specific about what I put in my mouth, what I eat. Am I sleeping enough? Am I doing my exercise? Do I understand my own health? So our own health inequalities has made me understand, and me want to understand my own health. And that's the thing that is helping me now actually gain that even greater level of resilience. And then, like I said, spirituality at work, which I've already spoken about. So those are the key things that I just want to talk about. Those are the challenges that I have faced. These are the challenges that COVID has brought to my table, to my family. And the last thing I want to say is that COVID, as a woman of color, has also made me realize that I'm a lone parent, that's for starters. I've got 3 children who are teenagers, and I work really hard. I love my job. I love my work, but it's also made me realize realign my priorities. I was one person who'd wake up really, really early, get to work really early, work until whatever time after 5, work really late, come home and continue working. But I came to realize that those little people who I call my children are of so much importance. They need me more than ever. Those people, it's almost like we prioritize our things like our work, but we forget the people who really matter. And those are the family, the people who we live with, the people who are around. And COVID has made me realize that I need to spend more time with my children. I need to spend more time cuddling my children, and just spending more time just making meals for my children at home, finishing work when I need to finish work, and being at home. So as a woman of color, yes, I know I need the money. Yes, I know I need to work hard, but I've also realized that I need to look after myself and my wellness. And I also need to do more with my family. The simple things in life are the things that COVID has amplified me. I wake up every day with gratitude, because I take each day as a gift, and I take each day as a day that I need to maximize. I need to give love, feel love, express love and kindness and compassion. And that's my aim every single day as I wake up. So I just want to leave at that note, Clive. Otherwise, I'll talk forever. But thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Ethel. You've left us an enormous amount of food for thought. The only real pity, unfortunately, is that, I mean, I've been in contact with at least 2 people for some reason, including Ilda, who can't get on for some reason. I'm not too sure what's happening with that. However, we are where we are. We have actually got a lot of stuff coming out of that. Marilyn, do you want to come in? Have you picked up anything? Because I don't think that Hilda may not join us now. I think she's not been able to get in. Yeah.
Well, yes, there has been a lot of what I would definitely call food for thought. Now, one of my big questions, and this is one I'm just going to put out there and just see if anybody wants to comment. But the first question that came to mind for me is, are Black people generally, and that's a blanket statement, because of course I'm Black and I am into personal development, I am into looking after my mental health, etc. But are Black people interested in working on their mental health? Because it's not something in that I've been in this field. I've been a coach and a therapist for the past 20 years. And it wasn't just that I was quite unusual when I first started in October 2000. It's also that my client base didn't necessarily look like me, because people who looked like me were not investing in coaching and therapy, etc. And it, you know, it's all personal choice. But when all three of our speakers were talking, I was thinking, is that changing? Has that now changed? Or is it still one of those areas that you might say it's important, but actually you're not really doing it? So that's kind of one thought that kind of came to mind for me. Another was, you know, in terms of looking after your own health, how does a lone patient and how does a lone Black woman amplify her voice when you're speaking to the medical profession? I'm one of those people who unfortunately didn't have a voice in my 20s. And so I was at the hands of a very arrogant specialist at one of the biggest hospitals in London, who basically destroyed my health forever, because I still have the same problems to this day after he joyfully destroyed my thyroid gland. And anyone who knows about the thyroid gland, it's tiny, but when you don't have one, the problems that come from that are immense and continuous and life-changing. But at that time, I knew it was wrong. I knew that his treatment plan wasn't right. And I knew that I was right and he was actually wrong, but I didn't have the confidence to speak up. And the net result was I then was left with a permanent health condition. So another thing I think is around empowerment, because it can be very daunting. And also the whole thing about, I think for me, definitely a big piece is, I like what Effa was saying about the realizations and the silver linings, because I think with anything that happens in life, if you look hard enough, there are normally some upsides, some benefits, some realizations, some learnings, etc. So I think that's another really important piece of the conversation. But what, you know, hearing about what's happening with regards to the mental health, because that whole sense of despondency, where you are getting knocked back, where you are hitting against the glass ceiling, as it's been said, it wears you down. It takes your energy, it almost steals your soul and your spirit. And a lot of that is to do with mental health, and having that recognition that the mind and the body really do affect each other. And I'm still not convinced that that is a message that has deeply permeated throughout the Black community. So I would definitely be interested to hear from the people here in terms of what are they doing in terms of their mental health, their well-being, coaching, mentoring, therapy. Is any of that happening on a wider scale in our community and in a big way? That's what I'm really interested in hearing in terms of the next piece of this conversation.
Thank you. In relation to other people who are on the call, I'm aware that there are other people with significant health, social care experiences behind them. People like Enid, who's been contributing for a long time. I think you're telling me, Enid, certainly 30 to 40 years. Pearline is on the call too. She's had a long background. And interestingly, in terms of what Favour was saying about the contribution, when I came to Watford like nearly 30 years ago, and I became involved in the association, I think you could almost call it the Nurses Association, because there were so many. And without the people with that medical background, that social care background, there wouldn't have been any organization. So do any of you colleagues who've had that kind of background want to say anything at this point? No? Okay. Pearline, it's unusual for you to be so quiet.
No, I'm just thinking, you know, just to put the thoughts in my mind in the appropriate words. But yeah, I personally don't think that we do. And as one of, I would say, of the older of us here, I wouldn't say the older generation. Well, yes, I am, because I've got the next generation coming up behind me. There's some things we don't do. For instance, I regularly go and have my face done, have my eyebrow done, have a pedicure, and the young lady always said, it's ever so nice to see you coming in and looking after yourself. And I think, well, if I don't look after myself, who is going to do it? And it makes me feel good when I walk out there. My feet feel lighter. I feel much better. I feel as if, okay, my face looks all right now. It mightn't do, but it's the feeling that I get. But and I know a lot of us are spiritually minded, go to church and thing. But for me, my Christianity and my spiritual belief have a lot to me existing, because as Clive know that I have my youngest son, he's autistic, and he's now what, 52, and at the time there was no help. There was nobody telling you anything. I was just out of my mind with it. But my elder sister, who was in Jamaica, I was talking to her and she said to me, "Sis, what's the matter? You don't sound yourself." And when I opened up and told her, she stayed on the phone and she prayed with me. And she said, "You must pray, you must pray, you must pray. The Lord will help you." And that is my spiritual belief that takes me through my whole existence here, in my nursing days, in my administration days, and with everything. But I will say that sometimes we don't spend time to look after ourselves. We look after everybody else. We run around, we look after the children, we worry about our parents or grandparents, but we forget to look after our own selves.
Thank you very much, Enid.
Perline.
Sorry, Perline.
You're the second person has called me Enid.
Enid, did you want to say anything about anything that's been said so far this evening? Enid is you're muted, Enid, if you wanted to say anything. Okay, I think we can always come back.
And Clive, I think what Perline has just said is kind of where I was going. That oftentimes the Black community will invest in how they look, but hair, face, nails, and that's all fine. That's cool as well. I like a bit of jewelry and all the rest of it, and they don't necessarily invest in what's going on behind the face and behind the nails and in the head. And speaking as someone who contemplated suicide in September 2000, I learned the hard way how important what's going on inside of your head and inside of your mind is. And I remember lying in bed one day, in such a bad way because of this overzealous doctor, where I had gone from, a natural size 8 to a size 16 and went bald and all the rest of it. I mentioned it on one of the previous calls. And I'm lying in bed, I'm looking at my walk-in wardrobe where I lived at the time, and I had the dawning realization that, number one, I can't fit into those clothes because my health is so bad. But number two, even if I could, I do not have the energy or the motivation or the drive. And lying in bed in that moment, I had the realization that I had spent more money on my clothes and on my wardrobe and on my bags and on my shoes than I'd ever spent looking after my health. And it's already been mentioned in terms of what actually goes into your body. And don't get me wrong, I like my nice things as well. I got my little plate of biscuits that I was nibbling before we got started. But it's like, oh my gosh, I need to sort my head out. I need to sort my head out, because if I don't, all of these clothes and all these nice things around me completely meaningless, and it was a pivotal moment. It took me several more years to figure out actually how to work on my health and my mental health, but the seed was planted in that moment when I just realized that all of the trappings, didn't matter how good I looked, I'm lying here contemplating taking my own life. And that was big for me. And I think it's still big for the Black community, but that moves us into the place of stigma, because I believe there is a stigma. It really should be, you know, I remember somebody saying, you know, God will provide, and I'm sure God will in many ways. And sometimes you might also need a bit of a helping hand. And as you're talking about the pulling up and pushing up, you know, that's already slightly been mentioned in terms of what Ethel said in terms of pushing the ladder back down. I giggled. I don't know if you heard that.
I did.
Yeah,
But, you know, there's a really important piece here, I think, about, you know, how we bring all of the pieces together. And I guess taking responsibility sounds a bit harsh, but has already been said, as Pearline was saying, if she doesn't look after herself, there's not that many people out there advocating for you who will.
Thank you.
Clive,
Yes.
can I say something? I don't know. Enid is keeping quiet,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna put her in the spot now. She can stay behind the screen and not look at me. But you know, she's one of the persons that I've met, and she will encourage everybody to eat healthily. And sometimes, you know, people don't take that advice. But I have been on steroids, and it has caused me to be the size I am. I've had to take, because of my I've had sarcoidosis, and I've now got spinal stenosis, and I've had to be taking tablets that don't agree with me. But I have spoken to Enid, and she had sent me a list of things that I should try and avoid. And this is another thing too, that COVID has allowed me to really spend time cooking and preparing the food and eating the things and not eating on the run, and try to eat healthily. And sometimes you will give someone an advice, or you will say something, but then it turns out as you're interfering, or mind your own business. So, you know, sometimes we have got to, and this is something, as we say, the younger ones are coming up, we have got to educate them. I don't know about you, but sometimes I say something to my son that says, oh mom, all right. Yeah, I said, no, don't all right me. What I'm saying is for your own good, and you listen. Don't next year you come and say, oh, you know, mom, you said so and so, you were right. I don't want to hear it then, just listen. And that is something that we have to do, and encourage our young people to look after themselves. Also, it helps to look after their mind.
Thank you very much, Pearline. I think we'll come back to that. But obviously, does anyone who's in the participating who wants to say anything, who hasn't said anything as yet? Because if not, just check if Dr. Brett, are you still with us?
Hello, yes, I'm here.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know how much of what is going on that you've heard, but one of the things would be helpful to understand from your point of view, whether there are any final words or anything that you really want us to go away from the session this evening to think on and act on going forward. I mean, I know Ethel has shared some takeaways already, and I will go to favor for her feeling too, but I know you are in and out, so as you're here, is there anything that you want us to take away from this conversation, apart from the fact that I think, in fact, this is the beginning of a conversation that should continue, because I think that this conversation does need to engage a wider number of people too. But is there anything that you wanted to share with us?
To be honest, I've been quite humbled by what everybody has said, because I thought people were candid. I thought people were inspiring. I feel inspired myself. I think it was amazing that people shared from the heart, because I know it's not easy from personal experience, because you know, we're as people of different walks of life and professionals that are here, we have a tendency of being a bit more contained, more composed. So it's not that easy to share. So I was truly humbled. I mean, for one thing is, I've got to say, one thing that I feel very passionately about is we must not get lost in the whole BAME thing, because BAME can engulf us as Black people. It can absorb us and make us disappear if we're not very careful. The reason why I say this is because from a personal perspective, I work in a profession where people that look like us, we're not that very well represented. Whereas you're going to find people like the Asian community are very well represented. In fact, they're oversubscribed, if you like, in, let's say, in the healthcare profession in particular. And we've got to make sure that we have a strong voice and that we're heard and we're recognized. For example, as a Black doctor, it's something that I used to take for granted, but I know that when I am there and patients come in that are Black, they feel a bit more relaxed. They feel, okay, I've got somebody who will understand me and be in my corner. And I think that's something that we've got to do as a whole, and recognize and support each other as Black people. That's one thing. From a mental health perspective, you know, it is challenging walking this tightrope and this society in the United Kingdom. And I've got to encourage people as much as possible, please don't be shy. Whenever you feel that your back is to the wall, whenever you feel that it's a bit uncomfortable, you're in a position where you're struggling, speak up. And what we've got to do within our association is make sure it is easier for people to have the opportunity to share amongst ourselves and one another. Then we've got to make sure there's a forum where people can contact each other and be encouraged, whether it's through a religious perspective, whether it's through a personal perspective, whether it's a gender perspective. It doesn't really matter. We've got to make sure that we're available for each other. Me, I'm sadly, I'm a pediatrician, so I'm slightly biased. The youth, we've got to make sure that, because we're in this group, just in this session, we're surrounded by wonderful, amazing people. We've got to make sure that we encourage them time and time again and do the role model thing, because that also helps in terms of mental health. Because many of these kids, their role models, please, no offense when I say this, people like Anthony Joshua, etc., are fantastic. But there's more to us than being sports persons, being musicians. There are lots of people in different walks of life. We've got everybody just within this forum who can help. And I think that's positive reinforcement also helps people's mental health, especially youth and even older people. So personally, my take-home message from this all was, number one, everybody's done an amazing job from each walk of life, health and care, social work, etc., have done amazingly well. Number two, we can't be shy about sharing. Thank you everybody for sharing. I was encouraged myself. And number three, going forward, that we've got to keep on with the narrative and the agenda of supporting one another and lifting one another up and not being swallowed up by BAME. Sorry about that rushed sharing, but thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Dr. Brett. Favour, over to you.
Okay. Thank you so much. I wanted to address the question that Marilyn asked about how, as Black people, we look after our mental health and how people are able to access support in their mental health. First of all, I want to thank you, Marilyn, for being so open in your sharing. This is what we need to break the stigma, to talk about mental health in our community. And it's important, like Dr. Brett said, that we don't get swallowed up in BAME and in the term people of color, because it hasn't done us any favors at all. When we drill down the data in terms of inequality and some of these issues we are discussing, we know, somebody said when the police is trying to catch somebody, they know who is Black They don't make a mistake about it. When they're doing stop and search, they know who is black, full stop. They don't make a mistake about it. So when we drill down on data on inequality, we begin to see in reality that our own disproportionate impact on some of these things are much, much significant on the Black community. So it's important we recognize that and don't get lost in some of these acronyms that are used for us sometimes. So talking about how we assess mental health support, one of the difficulties that I have come to realize is that there are two issues. One, the way that the mental health structure is set out is slightly different from the experiences of our community. It's just like when you see, when we talk about domestic violence and the routes to support women in domestic violence, you begin to understand the meaning of cultural competence when we look at some of these things. So there is stigma on one level, and the other level is the structures itself sometimes are not culturally competent to our community. And the way our community seek for support is slightly different from the way the other communities seek for support. I've worked in community mental health teams in adults, and I now work in camps. And I know the difference when our people are in service and the way they approach things and the way the white community approach things are totally different. That is number one. The other thing is our route to seeking support are also different. When a Black person is suffering or struggling, the way to seek support is slightly different. So for example, because of the way we are as a community, we grew up in an extended family system, and that's how our structures are in our communities. Regardless of the fact that we're now living over here and maybe have second generation, third generation and all that, but predominantly we live within communities and we relate to each other on that level. So when we want to seek support, we start from those structures. And also, like Ethel said, a lot of people from our communities have one faith or the other, one sort of spirituality or the other that they're involved in. And so when they want to seek support also, they first of all explore all these options before they come to the formal mental health system, as it were. So that the challenge there for us, and this is for us as practitioners as well, is to look at how we tailor support to reach these mediums where our people seek support through. So for example, some of these faith leaders need to some sort of training or understanding of how the formal structures work. And so that when they're giving support to people, things are going beyond what their level of competence or support might be. So they know at what point to signpost people forward to receive further support and who to go to. So these are some of the things that we need to look into as a community so that we don't become jack of all trades and master of none. And so you are a faith leader, you're a pastor, or you're a mom or something, become a marriage counselor, you become a therapist, you become a psychiatrist, you become a nurse at the same time, you know. So you know where your competence starts and where your competence stops and where you're able to refer people forward for further support. So that's one level of the issue. The other level of the issue is, I'm glad to see people like Marilyn in therapies and psychological therapies. It's not too very common to see our people in professions like clinical psychology. I'm studying at King's College, and we usually say it in class that it appears that clinical psychology is a profession for some sort of people and not for the others. But I'm glad that some of our people are breaking the glass ceiling and we're coming through to those professions now. But there are serious implications to that. Like Dr. Brett says, when you come to therapy and see someone that look like you, come to a medical appointment and see someone that look like you, half of the therapeutic alliance is already built, if I'm right, Marilyn. So, so we need to begin to encourage our people to get into some of these professions. Even as a social worker that I am, if you escalate some issues for me that borders on child protection from our community, my understanding of that will be different from a typical Eurocentric person, how they will interpret those situations. I'll give you an example. I've once been called into a school for a teenager that came to school as usual, and teacher asked a question and she said one or two things, and then they made an emergency escalation. And here am I, turned up there. Funny enough, the policewoman that came was also a Black woman, a Caribbean woman. So we looked at each other. We looked at each other twice. We didn't say anything, but we understood why we looked at each other. And then I called the young woman. I said, that this is a Black girl. I said, what happened? And she said, oh, everything that happened. And I said, so what did mom do? And she said, and so what did you do to mom? And she answered, and I looked at her again. And I looked at the policewoman, and she said, do what you need to do. And she stepped out. So I called the young girl. I said, listen to me. You go home tonight. Apologize to mom. And then I'll call mom tomorrow, and I'll tell mom off. So that was what happened. So she went home. She didn't, I mean, they expected us to remove her that night, but I said, you go home, apologize to mom, and I will call mom before you get home. And I will tell mom off. I will tell mom what she's done wrong, but you need to apologize first. But before you get home, I would have called mom. And I wrote my report and left. And eventually that was what solved that problem. She went home, apologized to mom. And I had called mom and said, mom, you shouldn't have done this, but I've asked her to apologize. And eventually the next day she was in school, and I continued working with them. And then things improved significantly. Then she didn't need to leave home. But there's a lesson there. The lesson there is because I think coincidentally, two of us that arrived there were Black women. And so we understood the context of what the child was saying that happened. And I was able to say to her, you know what, you just need to apologize to mom. And I would tell mom off. And that was it. But maybe someone else would have escalated that situation to proper, Section 47 inquiry. And before you know it, that child is a looked after child. And we know that the outcome for looked after children is not quite the same from children that are brought up in a healthy relationships in homes. So these are issues that we need to look at. It's not that people don't care about their mental well-being. I'm not quite sure that's what it is. I think there is stigma there, but there's also a cultural competence issue, and the way we assess support is slightly different. Otherwise, where we come from, if you look at where we are coming from, you see that people always have a way of managing some of these things and support each other through it. Thank you.
Thank you, Favor. I think we've had some superb contributions tonight. And I said it earlier on, I think we'll have to continue with this conversation, because I think we've only just touched the surface on these things. The question of mental health is one where I often think that sometimes some of us actually bottle things up too much in ourselves. And actually, we do need to think about changing too, because one of the things that exists in our communities is a reluctance sometimes to talk about our health and our well-being. So much so, sometimes you might have a parent who's got cancer, and you want to hear about it just before they're about to die, because actually they don't want to bother you with all the burden of all of that, because we want to carry the weight on our own shoulders. So I think what Marilyn has said about being honest and upfront about the issues and concerns is something I think we all have to think about doing a lot more of as we move forward. Did anyone in the audience want to say anything before we try and wrap up? Thank you very much again, Favor.
I'd just like to say a couple of things, Clive, if that's possible.
Yeah.
Firstly, really thank everyone tonight, because as somebody with very, very minimal insight into the healthcare system, I've learned a lot tonight. So thank you everyone for this opportunity. But I also think today's session has, from my viewpoint, provided us with an opportunity that we probably shouldn't let go. And by that is really, I'm looking at the lessons we can learn as somebody listening in. And it dawned on me, and as I'm a finance professional, and Ethel, I think listening to you, some of your experiences are just so similar to what I've gone through. And similarly as well, I think some of the things that the other speakers have touched on. So I'm just thinking, what can we do, knowing what we know and not knowing about the hurdles out there, to really devise a way of influencing things? Because a lot of the time, I'll give an example. Favor was mentioning about her meeting this Black policewoman and resolving an issue that could have been escalated. A lot of the time when I work in organizations, for some reason, the Black staff gravitate towards me because I'm very open, listen a lot. And what tends to happen as well is the senior managers, particularly white people, when there are issues, somehow they feel comfortable enough to come to me and say, listen, there's issue here, and we know they listen to you. So what I'm trying to get at is, how can we find a way of influencing organizations, structures, and systems to really make sure what we collectively are witnessing here, has a positive end, if you like, because I think that's very important. But also, second point that I probably want to really raise here is, with all the experience we have collectively as an organization and as a people, I think there's a gap that we can fill within the needs of our community. And I'm just saying, outside this, how can we really come together and come up with if you like, offering to our community that people can comfortably feeling like, actually, there's Favor in there, there's Ethel in there, there's Marilyn in there, who can offer me something that can help me navigate my way around the challenges I'm facing out there. Those are the 2 points. Thank you.
Thank you, Amadou. Anyone else? Okay, I just reflected on some of the things that have been said today. We are looking at health and social care, and I think when you think Favor, when she started off, talked about the contribution and the significant contribution that we've made in the sector, but at the same time, the way in which we've not been recognized and that lack of recognition. I think all our speakers talk about COVID and the fact that it's shown a light on inequalities and structural inequalities that continue. I mean, I was talking to our MP earlier on today, and we had a long conversation about the fact that our Minister of Equalities recently suggested that actually we shouldn't any longer be talking about things like white privilege and structural racism, because it's history.
Sorry, say that again. Please repeat that again.
That actually we shouldn't be talking about white privilege because there isn't any sound basis on which we should be doing that. And I did say to him that I think he should be going back to talk to his Minister of Equality and actually asking her to think again as to whether or not when we look at issues like COVID and when we look at the experiences that we've had over so many years, that we can now say we've buried racism and it's no longer a factor for us. So there are clearly big issues that concerns us, and people have talked about our underrepresentation, our overrepresentation in the wrong places, and in a lot of cases, the root of that is racism, and that's where it all comes from. I mean, I think Dr. Brett has made a point that we should really reflect on who we are, and I think we have to do that, and I think we have to continue to do that. Ethel said so many things, and I was making a note when she was talking about some of the experiences, and I'm not going to repeat all the things that she did say, but when she talked about having a mentor, I made a note that there was somebody pulling her up. And when she made a note about having a a considerate and helpful manager, I thought she had somebody pushing her up. And as you know, it's something I've been talking about for a little while.
Oh,
And
we'll see that in the book, Clive.
sorry?
We'll see that in the book.
Yes, yeah, indeed. Indeed. And I think she's also made a point that we have been making through these talks that we've got to be advocating for each other. We've got to be supporting each other. But also we have to hold the system that we have to account. And I think we need also to begin to make sure that we're represented in all of the various sectors and at the very top. We do need to make sure that we're able to get to those places where we can be in the Houses of the Parliament talking some sense rather than talking some nonsense. So I think we need to definitely be doing all of that. And I think Eto's mentioned the issue of spirituality, and I think that I make a distinction between that and religious belief and so on, that we all often would be maybe focusing on that. But actually, COVID has made us have to think about ourselves and look into our inner self more so than maybe we've ever done before. And what I would say, one of the things that I do to try and I think protect my mental health is that I have people that I'm always talking to. As you know, I'm always talking. Maybe I've invented talking therapies long before it became a therapy. So, and I'm going to continue to do that. But I mean, I think that a point that I picked up from what has been said is that we have to invest in ourselves. We have to invest in our community, and we have to empower ourselves and empower our community. And actually, around mental health, we do have to accept that there's some stigma that exists within our community. And we have to begin to erase that, because actually, if we're going to support each other, then we need to begin to think about that in a very different way. So, I mean, I think that there's a lot of work, I think, that has come up through this month, that we have got to find ways as a community to see how we're going to carry these things forward. Some of us have been carrying the load for quite a long time, and we'd quite like some help in carrying that load. So we do have an association that we welcome, particularly some of the younger ones, and I can see my grandson has joined the meeting.
Yes, yes.
So what I would say is definitely a lot of food for thought tonight. I'm going to just say tomorrow night we have our quiz night. I'm going to hand over then so the quiz night starts at 6 o'clock tomorrow night. Try and see if we can all get there. Probably people can get there a bit earlier, because it appears that a few people that would have wanted to be here tonight, including Hilda, who has sent me, whilst we've been meeting, a profuse apologies. She's been trying to get on since 6:45 and just wasn't able to get on. She tried various means. I sent her various links. Something has gone wrong. Maybe it's to do with Zoom tonight. I'm not too sure what it is. But I think that in itself tells us that the conversation that we've started tonight and the importance of a subject is something that we need to look at ways we continue this conversation. I think the issue about mental health, maybe we have to talk about that specifically as an issue in itself to how we look after our mental health. So thank you very much for joining in tonight. I'm going to leave Marilyn just with the last word. But sorry, before I do that, Etel, I know you spoke a while ago. Did you have any last word you wanted to share before I hand back to Marilyn?
Did you say Ethel?
Yeah.
Yes, I did, yes.
Okay. Yes, what I wanted to say is I certainly think that picking up on what Marilyn has said with regards to mental health, and also listening to Favor, really spot on all those things you said, Favor. Absolutely agree with you around the cultural competency and the need to amplify more psychological therapists within this field. I'm also a therapist myself. I'm a mental health nurse and a CBT therapist, so absolutely know that there's not enough of us out there. I also know that in mental health services, there's an over-representation of people from Black and ethnic minorities who are maybe under section and also coming into hospital really, really unwell. So one of the things that I'm advocating, and I've already started a project on men's mental health, where I am trying to engage men into just having conversations about mental wellness. And again, using primary care services, so using the services that are already out there within primary care, we're not doing enough of that. So there's something that we need to absolutely do around it. So Clive, I would really say that going forward, I do think your suggestion of having a session just on that alone will be something quite crucial and quite key to do. I also just want to thank you for the opportunity of hearing from all the wonderful experts on this platform. Favor, Dr. Brad, Marilyn, and everybody else who's spoken. It's been really, really, refreshing. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Marilyn, concluding points?
Yeah, there are two names that I want to kind of put into the ring. It's a little mini roll call. They're not here. They may never see this or hear this. But one of them is Dr. Nola Ishmael, OBE. She was one of the first Black directors of nursing. And also May Tanner, who was the first ward sister in Bristol. And one of the things when I met May, there was someone else who was heralded over and above May, and she'd been forgotten in the history books as being the first. And I was chairing a Black History Month event for the Barbados High Commission, and they were then a spin-off event from that. And when they described the treatment that they had in the NHS, you know, going up to someone with the bedpan to clean them, etc., being spat on, the N word, the F word, and they still pioneered on and did the job because they were dedicated to doing that job. So there have been so many people. Dr. Brett had mentioned it in terms of, you know, the representation, but I think the thing that he was referring to with the NHS poster, I know many of the nurses that you speak of who were there at the start of the founding of the organization, and they were the backbone and have been the backbone of the NHS. They transformed that service, and I believe that it is largely partly what it is today because of those Black women who were in there rolling up their sleeves and taking all sorts of awful, nasty treatment and still then being compassionate and caring for those patients. So it really is a nod to everyone who has spoken here today who is within that system, and all of those who were here in the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s, bringing an air of professionalism to it that we all benefit from today. Now, there are a couple of interesting things. I think if we could leave the group with a couple of questions, and everybody's touched on it, and Ethel kind of went into it in a bit more detail, but number one question is possibly, as we bring the Black History Month to a close, although as Clive said, it's continuing, what have been maybe some of your biggest realizations or learnings from COVID as we all walk away from these events, and really just maybe sit and think about that for the next couple of days? And I also do love the question, what do you need to do more of? So Ethel had mentioned the gratitude piece. I've been doing a gratitude journal for 20 years. It makes such a massive difference. I also do my walking gratitudes where I'm walking and I'm just going to say, okay, what 10 things can I think of that I appreciate and feel kind of happy and grateful for today? And sometimes I run out of stuff, so I'm grateful for my Dualit toaster, but I truly am, because it makes good toast. But you know, so it's not always highfalutin stuff, but it's just really simple. But if we all kind of maybe sit and just think about, you know, those sorts of things, what can we take away? And I would also then say, from all of the wonderful conversations that we've heard, maybe also if you're going back and people are watching those on YouTube, just maybe from each of those, just pulling one thing that you've learned, one thing that you could do differently, one thing that you could implement that will then kind of move and progress us on to the next level. But you know, there's a lot of work to do. There have been so many great ideas and suggestions. I have had so many ideas about working as a team. For example, when Favor said about how did she put it, the formal mental health system, I actually thought, I don't even know what that means. I actually don't know what that means. And if I don't know what that means, the general public probably doesn't know what that means. And also in terms of how do you relate to someone, I remember, you know, I've done a lot of work as a management consultant in central and local government, and there's often guidelines how to work with the Hindu community, how to work with the Bengali community, how to work with the Sikh community. Now I'm thinking about it, I don't think I've ever seen any guidelines about how to work with the Black community. So again, I'm sitting here going, hold on a minute. So Favour is saying da 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 da, and that people are still getting it wrong. Maybe we also need our own guidelines, which maybe sounds like a crazy thing to say. But now when I heard you say about the minister saying we don't need to talk about Black, you know, white privilege, I'm like, okay, we need that guidance. We need those notes. And it looks like Favour wants to come in and say something. So Favour, feel free.
Okay.
No, just laughing there when you said that. But like I said, I sit on NHS England Mental Health Inequality Task Force, and we've been working a lot to develop guidance on accessibility and integration in different care pathways of the mental health system, both in camps and in adults. Because you're right to say that there is no competence there to even in colleges and in trainings in how to begin to engage people within our communities. For example, you know this, you're a therapist. Usually the fundamentals of like CBT therapy is about guided discovery and Socratic questioning. But you know that in some communities like ours, when we come to a doctor, we expect the doctor to tell us what to do, and we do it. That's how we are. But this is not how therapies work. Therapy work in a guided discovery way, and you taking the control of saying, this is what I think is happening, with your therapist navigating it with you. So there has to be a way to integrate our way of reasoning and looking at things to that therapy system to suit our needs. Otherwise, that's why you find out that you refer someone to therapy and they said, when I sit there and talk, it doesn't make any meaning to me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, it's wonderful. And also in terms of, this is our last formal event, and Clive really must have the last word when I finish talking. But I also just want to say thank you to Clive, because it takes an enormous amount of work to bring these events together, to send all the emails, to send the WhatsApps, to answer the phone when somebody can't log in, and you know, all of that. I don't know if people realize how much work it takes, and we've had some days where the events have just been back to back. So you know, I haven't had to do the organizing, I just turn up and go hi. But you know, thank you, Clive, for all of the hard work. Really, really appreciate it. And speaking as someone who's both been listening and, you know, participating on some occasions co-chairing, all of the conversations have been hugely valuable, and I think some of them are possibly happening for the first time for many people in our community. So thank you very much for bringing this whole thing together.
Thank you, Marilyn. But I would just want to end by saying a particular thanks to Dr. Brett, who is no longer with us at the moment, to Favour, and to Ethel in particular. She's not even a part of our local community, but you know, we have an international community and we have a national community, and Ethel and I have worked together very well over a period of time, and we're going to continue to work together because actually that's how we're going to make a difference. If those of you don't know it, our motto as an organization is together we can achieve, and there are good reasons for that, and those reasons still exist. So thank you all. Thank you, Marilyn, for co-chairing with me too, because actually Marilyn wasn't someone that I had been aware of before we started on this Black History Month journey, which will become the Black History Journey. But actually, she very quickly became indispensable. And so, and actually, it seems as if we've known each other forever. You'd never believe it. It's not so long. So, Marilyn, thank you very much. But thank you all for tonight. And I will see you all tomorrow night. There's Pearline.
Yeah, before you close, you've said thank you. Marlene has said thank you. Can I, on behalf of everybody who has logged in all these on these Zoom program, it's been wonderful. And I'm saying thank you for all the people who have logged in, who haven't said anything. You haven't seen their faces, but I know they have appreciated. And tomorrow is the last day of October, and I hope it's not the last of us meeting. And I was thinking the young people that we listened to last night, I hope within a few months or so, invite them back to say how they're getting on, and invite Marlene and Ethel and Favor. Well, we see her all the time, do we, Favor? To you know, just to come back and give an update on how they're getting on. And then if they need help and there's help, this is how we can help to mentor them or assist them. If they go away for a whole year, we don't know. And even I myself, it's inspirational to me, because I know what I went through when I first came here as a student. And so, but I haven't talked about that. That's
Pearline, thank you very much for that. Actually, two things. We are going to finish, but two things. One is that I mean, I was going to do this tomorrow night, but actually, Marlene is right. We've done a lot of work to make these things happen. It's not just been just me or Marlene even. We've had a team of people that has been second to none in actually putting these series of events together, and that will continue tomorrow with Joe, who has been really a tower of strength in the background, coming to the foreground tomorrow evening. So I want to thank all of those people. But Pearline, in relation to your point there, I have to say, we have already recruited, I've put her on the list for our steering group, Khadija, who is one of she came to our supplementary school from the time she was in primary school. And she contacted me after last night to say she wants to get involved. So that's already a success. So I think that we are definitely not going to have this as a one-off 1 month of the year affair. And we've already had some conversations about a whole range of things. To be honest, the difficulty is without a lot more people involved in making these things happen, there's only a fraction of what we could do that we're going to be able to do, particularly with the resources that we have around. I said to the MP today that actually, as communities, we have been starved of resources. And I've been getting the county council now coming to us. We have got the MP wanted to talk to us. But actually, nobody's actually recognizing that it requires resources to do these things. And people say to me, well, what about you can apply to this project fund, you can apply for that project fund. The thing about project fund, it doesn't provide your co-funding. And that's where we're missing, because actually I think it's down to the volunteers that we have, and some of them are on the call today, not just the Black History Month group. Pearline herself has been talking earlier on. We've got Amadou, we've got Valerie, we've got Marcia, we got Enid on the call. These are all people who have been working for quite a long time to keep things going without the benefit of that kind of co-funding that would enable us, for example, to employ someone to do things. And people have said, well, actually, you've got a few pounds in the bank. Why don't you employ staff to do something? But actually, if we're going to be sustainable, what we have in the bank won't go very far. So that's the reason why we've chosen not to do it, because we could have spent it all and we wouldn't be having this discussion tonight. So thank you all again. I think we better finish the conversation there for now. And then, but this is not the end. We are going to be continuing. So thank you again. And I'm going to switch off the recording now.
Wonderful. Thank you, Clive. Thank you all. And thank you for the
everybody.
comments.